Hey guys, Elizabeth, the curly haired country gal here. Thanks so much for joining me again, along with these wonderful women, in this 8-part series of raising meat rabbits. Now, in our first video, we talked about the basics of what to look for, what to ask if you're getting a rabbit. In this video, we're going to talk housing. There are many options for housing your rabbits, including
stall-style rabbitry barns,
rabbit tractors,
colony cages.
So later on in this video, Donna is going to give some ideas for hides, places for rabbits to hide if you have a colony. And stick around to the end because Lorella is going to give us a detailed layout of her rabbit tractors, for which she offers free plans. She's taken lots of ideas from different rabbit tractors and made something that I think is going to be awesome. I'm actually planning on making 2 of these next spring, Lord willing, for our rabbit grow outs. Let's do this thing. Now, before we dive into all the different kinds of housing, I love the thoughts that Donna and Charity gave as you think about getting into meat rabbits.
My philosophy in most things is do it once, do it right.
Nice.
But if you don't have any money, you can't do that. So a lot of sheds and things are hodgepodge together with whatever recycled tin we could get. And a lot of the timber was bought new, but it was like fencing rails rather than proper framing timber. And
We started with whatever cages, and I'm talking about tiny cages, we could get like free or for 25 bucks off of Facebook Marketplace. And so that's a huge thing, is I feel like I see a lot of people feel like they have their dream infrastructure set up before they can start. And it's like, this is something that, like, I think we will always be learning. We will always be optimizing. So like, just like, I just want people to start.
So just start somewhere.
We do raise primarily in cages. However, when our new rabbitry is done, we will also have tabletop colonies. I am not a ground raiser for various reasons, which we actually will get into. If you're raising in a cage setup, you won't necessarily be able to do a burrow, but you can do huts, the little porta huts. Those work really well.
So I love Victoria's thoughts on cages. I prefer the colony style setup, but there are definite advantages to having your rabbits in cages. They're so easy to catch and you can really control breeding very well. There can be a lot of oopses when you have a colony setup. So thanks, Victoria. Next up,
we are switching over to a stall style rabbitry barn, and they will have more options. We had a little trial, and some of them just prefer to be in their cage, and that is fine. So we're just going to put them into the larger ones, and that'll all work okay. We are off grid. We don't have automatic anything at this point, so we are manually feeding and watering everyone. It does not take that long, but we can also then control and make sure everybody's eating, everybody's fine, able to do health checks. So that's a huge benefit of that.
So I've heard of this stall style rabbitry barn a couple times. The main place that I saw it was on Homesteady's channel, where you just have, what I'm picturing is you just have a barn and there's different stalls and there's a concrete floor and the rabbits go in there. They can't burrow, but they have more space to move around and things like that. So Donna's going to share a story about how she got interested in colony raising in the first place, and we'll hear more about colonies. And then she's going to give us several ideas of what you can use for hides in your colonies. And then we'll also hear from Megan about her setup, and Charity's going to tell us about her colony and her very clever idea for catching rabbits in a colony setup.
when I was a kid, my mum was a kindy teacher. We went to get this rabbit for her to have at kindy, and the lady we went to get it from opened up this shed door and there were rabbits and guinea pigs all running all over the place. And I was like, if I ever get rabbits, this is how I'm keeping them, because they were so happy in this big shed just hooning around. Yeah. So that's when I started looking into, but I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know what a colony was. So I was like, group housing for rabbits, or yeah.
Wow.
Trying to find some stuff. And then I found a Facebook group. I don't know if it still exists, but it was called Meat Rabbits and Colonies or something like that. And so I joined that and learned a lot.
I have seen fantastic setups in the US though, where people basically have rabbit-proof pastures and they just rotate the rabbits through them. You do need to put something over the top, some bird netting, some thin wires, something if you have hawks or falcons or any aerial predators. Even owls, I think, will do it from the top. And other than that, yeah, just rotate the rabbits through.
All of our rabbits are directly on the ground in some way. Our colony rabbit is where we keep our rabbit breeding does and their kits that are less than 8 weeks old. They have burrows that are in the ground where they can go in and feel like they're in a more natural setting. They also have access to the dirt where they can dig around. Now don't worry about them getting out. I've buried fencing that's 1.5 foot down, so they can dig down, but they can only go so far. And it goes all around the rabbit colony, so that protects them from getting out, but it also protects predators from getting in.
I let them free burrow. Not every colony person does, but I let them free burrows. If you see all the, just be real rabbits. And we try to give them some fun things to jump on and chew on. But this is an old repurposed greenhouse, and this is only like $250 on Amazon new. So for somebody who wants a rain shelter, and we all the holes over there is because that's where the greenhouse used to be. So we try to encourage digging more towards the middle. We learned the hard way not to encourage digging on the edge. But we have pallets in here raised on some cement blocks, and that encourages them to nest in here. Good. So that weather is not as big of a deal. I do have a divider here that I can close. And the intent is to even subdivide the lower yard then, so I can have an area to put the buck. Oh, okay, so there's one of them. And I actually cut a hole in the side and we feed them in there now, so that when I need to catch somebody, I can just block the end while they're I can wait and make sure they're good and hungry, put some of their favorite treats in there, and then block them when they're in. Well, this used to be a tractor trailer, and so we just cut out a little hole there that I can just take a little board and kind of cover up. I can close them up and catch them if I need to. So it's just a repurposing an old cage.
Some great ideas for burrows or hides. You can use tires. They'll happily nest in those. Upturned milk crates with a wee side cut out. You can build purpose-built ones with some untreated pellet wood. Cat carriers. You can often pick up broken or just unwanted cat carriers for free because the door's fallen off or the cage is cracked. You can use those. Washing baskets with a hole cut in them, buckets even just lying on their side. There's heaps of different things. Basically, if a rabbit will fit in it and it's sort of that size, they will quite happily use it as a hide or a nest.
Now, in our rabbit colony, we do have in-ground burrows that I dug out, made out of 5-gallon buckets and some 6-inch PVC pipe. This allows our rabbits to give birth underground, but it has a top on it that I can undo and I can check the kit.
Now, before we get to our last type of housing for rabbits, we're going to get a few ideas for ways to water your rabbits and ways to feed your rabbits.
If you're wanting to set up a rabbitry like ours, especially if you're wanting to do a colony style rabbitry, I highly suggest doing things like chicken waterers, the bulk chicken waterers people get. Fill them up, you set it in there, and all rabbits can drink out of that same water. So that water goes for multiple rabbits. Plus, it's usually cheaper than those rabbit water bottles you can buy. They can be like $7 to $15 a piece, and that's not even for the heated ones. We don't personally use any kind of water bottles on our homestead to feed our rabbits because we had the occurrence where a litter of kids did not learn how to use the water bottles, and we had 3 die before I realized that they weren't drinking water. Now, in our rabbit tractors, we just use dog food bowls for their water, and I fill them up every night when I go around and feed our rabbits. It's very easy to do things like this on a low cost if you do not look for things that are marketed towards pet rabbits. Avoid that. Avoid the pet rabbit section and start thinking outside of the box.
I haven't used the ones that screw on the side of the bucket for chickens that you push in. I've used the up ones, and rabbits can work those out. And then they sell them as rabbit nipples. They're kind of like pig nipples but tiny.
Oh yeah.
And we've used those with great success. That's what we end up mostly using, just screwing them into either a bucket or some line. You just got to keep the rabbits away from anything plastic, because they'll eat it. We set up this whole big system with little bits of hose, and it was really cool. And then the next day we came out, the whole thing was empty. The floor was wet, and there were 2 big holes in the hosing. No. For the rabbit colony specifically, we made a hay rack so that we only had to fill it once a week. It would fit a whole big thing of hay in it, and because they were eating other stuff, hay was always their last choice. And then we made some of those with the downpipe, and then we bend so you could fill the top up, and they could self feed out of there, and that mostly worked. But the babies were real brats, and we'd get in there and just dig and fling it all the way across the So we had to not do that anywhere that the grow outs were.
Oh,
The adults were
my.
fine. They'd stick their wee faces in and eat properly, but the grow outs were just brats. But we also, whenever we could, gave them as much forage as we could.
Now for our last main type of housing for rabbits, we've got rabbit tractors.
Now our rabbit tractors get moved every single day to new ground so they can eat different weeds that are around, and their manure gets spread throughout our property.
We use tractors because, one, the rabbits can graze, which we love to have them do. It's what they would do in the wild. And two, we can move them around so they can get to fresh grass every day. If you have a colony, you're kind of constricted to the colony area. If they're in cages, they're not getting any graze at all. So this allows us to move them to fresh grass, fresh clover, fresh plantain and comfrey, anything that's growing in the yard, and they can pick and choose what they want to eat.
We used to do entirely ground tractor trailers. And I still keep my primary breeder male and his lady in here. So I can show you, these are ground tractor trailers that are like 4x8, I guess.
Oh, those are great.
Yeah, and so we move them every couple of days and put them on fresh ground. Don't jump out. At first, when we were first starting out, that was just a great compromise for us between doing like the traditional hutches or cages with the colony style. One, it's natural, grass cutting. But I really love to see rabbits be kind of how they were made to be on the ground. I think it was also a very good transition between cages to colony for their immune system. They got a little bit of that being on the ground, but they were moved every couple days, and so it was fresh, clean ground, and that really helped them adjust so that when we were ready to put the colony in, their systems could handle being on the ground all the time a lot easier. But then we keep those for separating them out. So if we ever need to separate a sick rabbit or a male or some young ones coming of age, like we've got those ground trailers down that we can still use in the yard for those.
So here is the design that Lorella came up with and has built for her homestead.
After looking into all the different kinds of rabbit housing that's available, we decided that our main way to raise our rabbits will be in these rabbit tractors. And we looked at lots and lots of different rabbit tractor designs before we settled on this one. And we kind of pulled a little bit from this person and a little bit from that person. I think we'll get you back out of the sunshine. It's already getting warm out here, and I will give you a closer look at my tractors. Our tractor is built with an 8-foot long 2x2. That's the handle that you see there across the top. So the actual body of the tractor is 6 foot long, which leaves 2 foot of handle room at the end. We decided wheels was important because we did not want to be dragging our cages around all the time, which I know some people do, but we're both in our 50s and we're only going to get older, so we wanted this to be as easy as possible. These are super easy to move. Another feature that we included was this kickstand, which I actually saw first at Filer Farms when I went to visit them. So basically, it's a little bit hard to do one-handed, so I'll show you in a minute. But when you open the top of the tractor, the kickstand automatically flips into place. A third feature that we wanted to include was this raised area. We get snow, we get a lot of rain, and I wanted the place for the rabbits to be able to come in and have a hide. So it's got wood here and then metal all the way around, and for them to get up off the wet ground if they want to. Rabbits can handle cold pretty good. What they don't like is wet and rain in the winter. So this provides them that. And in winter, we also put a nest box in every one of our rabbit tractors, even the bucks, with hay in it. So it gives them somewhere to get really snuggled down and get out of wind and rain if they want to. Oh, what? Did I startle you? I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. He doesn't have a name yet. I'm still working on that. On the part of the rabbit tractor where they graze, we have 2-inch by 4-inch hardware cloth. This is small enough so that the rabbits can't dig through it or get through it. We have had a small bunny now and then because I also have my does do have their litters in here. And if I lift the end up to try and move the tractor, I have to be really careful that a bunny that's about 4 weeks old doesn't hop through one of those on the way out. That has happened from time to time, but usually they want to stay close to mom, so they're easy to get back in the cage. This is I want to say like 128 ounce, 124 ounce juice bottle that we have emptied. And we stick it in our deep freezer. And then in the summer, when it's hot, we bring it out frozen, and the rabbits like to lay up against it. It helps them keep cool. This black latch ensures that the lids don't get blown open by the wind. The handle makes it easy to lift so we don't cut ourselves on the edge of the tractor. Basically, I unlatch it, lift the handle, and it props right into place, making it easy to get in, to feed the rabbits, to get a rabbit out, anything you want to do without having to hold the lid up over your head. When I want to close it, push the leg in so that it will slide down, lift the latch out of the way. Voila, super easy peasy. Right now I have them, my house is right here, and this is the west side of the house because our summers are hot. So in the summers I'll park them over here where they will get shade from about noon on by the shade of the house. So that way I can keep them cool enough as I want to. And then in spring, fall, and pretty much everything else except for summer when it's really hot, we'll have them out in the orchard where as we move the tractors around the different trees, they're also naturally fertilizing and helping to make our orchard more fruitful.
Man, so many great ideas. And speaking of ideas, let's see some of the setups that you all shared with me. So here's Amanda's kind of stall-style rabbitry barn. Beautiful setup, tons of hides, sawdust on the ground. There's some welded wire to catch all the poop, more hides. Looks fantastic. Here's Angela's setup, a stall-style barn, lots of feeders, tons of happy rabbits, some sawdust. And here's another one of her setup. So we've got kind of these dog kennels outside with a covering over it and some cement blocks, some pavers around the perimeter to keep from digging out, I'm guessing, feeders and waterers. Now we have Tristan's beautiful setup. It looks like it could be a chicken run with a chicken coop, just converted for rabbits. They've got places to hide, lots of space, food and water, places to dig. And then we've got Robert's setup. Again, kind of a carport type of a setup with a covering and fencing / welded wire along the sides. Then Anne has this setup, again, almost a carport type of a setup with the tarp on the back, a little kid house for the rabbits to go in, so that's fun. Jessica has this beautiful setup. Again, looks like it could be a chicken run with welded wire on the outside, some hides, some places for them to run around. And then Anne has this beautiful setup. Again, looks like it could be a chicken coop. That's probably maybe what she bought it as, but there's places to hide. Looks beautiful. And last but not least, this is Robert's setup. We have this great wire or chicken wire around the outside, and it's dirt on the inside, but he has this big mound in the center where there are several hides, so the rabbits are encouraged to dig there and not dig out. And you notice that he put his waterers on cement blocks. I do that too, just so it stays level. Awesome ideas. Thank you so much for those of you who gave me your ideas of your setup. It's so fun to see. You can check out my playlist where you can see my setup of the colony out here. I have dog kennels that make this 30-foot by 30-foot square, and it's sectioned off so I can kind of rotationally graze them a little bit in the spring and summer. So plenty of housing options for your rabbits, but like Charity said, just start somewhere and you'll see what you like and you see what works and you can see what's in your price range. Okay, I've got 2 pieces of homework for you. 1 is to check out another one of these women's channels down below. And 2, if you want to follow me, go ahead and subscribe. In our next video, we're going to talk feed. Thanks so much for joining.